Good Friday afternoon to you. 4 o'clock time for Sports for CLE. Hope your weekend is off to a great start. Thanks for joining us. So the Deshaun Watson appeal is now becoming a settlement. It is an 11-game settlement. And there are a couple of conditions that Deshaun has to meet to, in fact, being reinstated after that 11-game suspension. Treatment recommendations of a third-party behavioral expert have to be complied with by Deshaun Watson. Reinstatement is contingent upon compliance with the treatment plan. If he doesn't comply, reinstatement could be delayed, or he could also get further discipline. So again, those are some of the conditions, the fine print, if you will, of the settlement that was agreed to. Sam Acho, who has experience as an NFLPA executive committee member on the Deshaun Watson 11-game suspension.
I see this as a teaching moment. I know in football, a lot of times you'll use someone else's mistake to learn from it. I mean, for me, I see this as a situation where what you do in the dark will come to the light. Even if you think that no one else knows about it, it's going to get found out. So if you have an issue, right, like get it addressed before it turns into something huge. And then secondly, if you've made a mistake, apologize genuinely, like wholeheartedly. Don't give half-hearted apologies. And so for me, I think there's 2 points. The point of we talked about it, the counseling piece. He's going to counseling, going to therapy. Do that earlier, and hopefully it works right down the line. He gets better. But also the point of genuine remorse, genuine accountability. I think that's the piece that we're seeing missing, at least when you watch some of these interviews that we're seeing here.
And again, that is relative to Watson at his media availability yesterday, saying that he stood by his innocence. So Mike Florio on Watson getting a second chance and what he heard during Watson's media availability, where he, again, said he stood by his innocence.
Deshaun Watson doesn't believe he deserves a second chance because he doesn't need a second chance because he didn't do anything wrong. See, that's the problem here. And the guys who get the second chances are the talented players. It's the old Jimmy Johnson example. Guy falls asleep in a meeting, I cut him. What if Troy Aikman falls asleep in a meeting? I get him a pillow. That's the reality. And Jimmy Haslam kind of acknowledged that. If it was just some run-of-the-mill guy, they wouldn't have bothered with it. They see the opportunity to have a quarterback who's 26 years old and he's going to be there for a long time. They're willing to deal with some short-term pain. They're willing to hold their nose for now because they understand it's going to be 10 years, maybe longer, that they have something that they haven't had for a very long time in Cleveland, a quarterback who can continue to play at a high level for season after season after season. So that's fine. But it all collapses upon itself if he refuses to acknowledge that he's on to chance number 2.
And with that, let's welcome in Jeff Lloyd, host of the Locked On Browns podcast. Jeff, I hope that Deshaun Watson's tune changes. If not, he's either getting bad advice or not listening to the PR advice he's getting. He can't come out and continue to kind of double and triple down as an innocence, I don't think.
I think the first thing you took away from yesterday was, what was the Browns' rush to just go to the media right after, the agreement on, the suspension being finalized? Everything felt so rushed, and that's why it looked like it was so, wishy-washy. You had, the ownership where you had the quarterback saying he felt he didn't do anything wrong. Then you had front office, you had ownership saying, oh, well, we understand. We've been down this road before with a player like Kareem Hunt, where we're all about giving second chances. So you have ownership talking about second chances, but meanwhile, you had the quarterback talking about the fact he still felt like he didn't do anything wrong. And of course, this was after some sort of apology that was, put out through Didi Kinkhabwala right before kickoff of the first preseason game. I think the Browns should have maybe said, hey, let's get out to the practice field and we'll have, PR members and other people work on this, so we don't go out here and it looks like everybody's giving different messages. That was certainly not the way to go here. But for Deshaun Watson, it's time to show some remorse. Look, regardless, you got suspended 11 games. You paid a ton of money to a bunch of alleged victims. You are being fined $5 million by the NFL. That's fine if you don't think you did anything wrong inside your heart, but I don't know you can truly believe that. There was some wrongdoing on his part. He wouldn't be missing 11 games. He wouldn't be fined $5 million. He wouldn't have to pay off a bunch of people who had a class action suit against him. None of these things would have happened if there wasn't any wrongdoing. And sometimes you just got to bite the bullet, even if you don't think you are wrong. Sometimes you owe some people an apology. And you want to know what? At the end of the day, it's just acknowledging, other people's feelings being hurt. And it's just an easier way to take your head and go about your business every single day.
All right, on to some other things, still somewhat related, though. How concerned are you with the wide receiving core, especially given the fact that it very well may be Jacoby Brissett playing quarterback for the first 11 games of the season?
Well, the first thing, with Jacoby Brissett, there's some things that you're just not going to get from him that you get from Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson is a much more agile quarterback, has much better feet within the pocket. He can break the pocket and then set up, scramble plays after that. You're not really going to get those opportunities with Jacoby Brissett. And the other thing is, what's difficult is, you've had guys who have spent some time getting to know, Deshaun Watson as their quarterback, but now everything is going to shift to Jacoby Brissett. This comes down to the, 3 young wide receivers. Donovan Peoples-Jones, you saw a gradual step up in year 2. You need that step up in year 3, a big one. You need to talk about production somewhere closer to 50, maybe 60 receptions from Donovan Peoples-Jones. Anthony Schwartz, he has a calling card that nobody else in that room does. 4.2 speed. Against the Jaguars, you see him do everything right a couple of times, except for the most easiest part, which is just physically catching the football. Practice has gone a little bit better for him this week. David Bell, you finally get some run out of him yesterday against the Eagles. He kind of had a rough day with some drops. The Browns need these young wide receivers to grow up quickly. Jacoby Brissett doesn't have the overall talent to, bail things out and just throw perfect ball after perfect ball like you're going to expect from Deshaun Watson. So you're certainly going to need, this to get better. If not, and I think the Browns have, went through week 1 of the preseason, gave them time. They'll give them time this week. But if these 3 young guys do not step up, the Browns certainly are probably going to be in the market to bring in a veteran here. It doesn't mean that they're canceling out these young guys, but they're going to need somebody in here who's got a proven track record to be able to aid in the gap from Jacoby Brissett until Deshaun Watson finally comes back in December.
And again, that could be 53-man cutdown day. It isn't necessarily going to be immediately. They're going to be looking for a specific type, and they have a list of guys that they know are kind of on the fringe there that they would likely go after. Schematically, what does Kevin Stefanski's offense look like, do you think, with Jacoby Brissett as the quarterback? What are some of the things you think they play to that would be strengths of Jacoby Brissett?
I think, and this is one thing with the talks this year, of Deshaun Watson coming in and, maybe where the Browns and Baker Mayfield had the ultimate fracture was Coach Stefanski didn't maybe get to, all of his playbook. And this is the thought process he was going to be able to do with Deshaun Watson. With Jacoby Brissett, I think you're kind of back in the same situation. You're going to lean on this running game. You're going to lean on the offensive line. You're going to lean on play action. You're going to hope to create easier throws from Jacoby Brissett, but you're going to have to get Jacoby Brissett to be a legitimate quarterback. You saw it last year. Team said, fine, we know how good your running game is. All right, well, run the ball, and we have 9 guys in the box. That's going to be the difficulty. And Jacoby Brissett, to his credit, I think he can play to the level that Baker Mayfield played better last year, or possibly play a little bit better. But we'll see how it translates for him for the next couple of weeks. Obviously the Browns were in a tough spot integrating Deshaun Watson into a new system, even though he was going to be away for a foreseeable time. Jacoby Brissett now playing as the first string quarterback, as he will be for the next 3.5, 4 months for this team. He's got to find his rhythm. He's got to develop a relationship with Amari Cooper. He had a great relationship with tight ends when he was with the Colts. Harrison Bryant, David Njoku, we don't worry about their receiving abilities. We know they can contribute in that facet. That's something they're going to have to get going here. And Kareem Hunt, with everything that's going on with that situation, he is the 3rd best talent they have with the football in his hands. They absolutely have to find a way to utilize him. If that's, putting him on the field at the same time with Nick Chubb, having him line up in the slot, having him line up maybe as a fullback and run pass patterns from that spot. You've got to use your best talent here if you're the Browns, understanding that Jacoby Brissett just has some shortcomings, does not have the overall God-given ability that Deshaun Watson is. So it's the old theory of, KISS, keep it simple, stupid.
Let's take some good news coming out today. Myles Garrett, returning to the Browns, was away from the team because of a personal matter, returns to joint practices. Jeff, Myles Garrett's the last guy in the world you're going to worry about. The main thing is you want to keep him healthy, I think.
Oh, there's no question. And the Browns they've been great with this through the Barry and Stefanski era of finding their talented players and saying, "Hey, you feel great? That's good. All right, go over there by the bike side. I don't need you to do any more today." We want to call it a mental health day. We want to call it a rest day. We'll call it whatever it is. December is a million times more important than August. Myles Garrett, apparently there's somebody close to the family is, very, very ill. So Miles wanted to go home, take some time with the family, before he gears up for what'll be a long run here. You're not worried about Miles Garrett. And I think that's part of the thing that's been so difficult about this entire process with Deshaun Watson is you have such great young men, players, leaders, guys who serve the community within that locker room, whether it's Miles Garrett, whether it's Nick Chubb, Joel Bitonio, Wyatt Teller, the list goes on. And it really feels like one guy who's really barely been a part of this team, and he's only been here for 5 months, seems to be the one that is basically has, that the arrow pointed to the entire roster. When the fact is, this roster is full of great guys who are great in the locker room, do everything the organization asks of them, and are great in the community. And I think, that's been, again, for me, the most difficult part for these past 5 months is because the Browns as a whole have, basically gotten a black eye, and maybe deservedly so. But I don't think one guy defines that entire 53-man roster.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And you know what? The quarterback always gets a lot of play, and even more so somebody who has been in the news the way Deshaun Watson has been. Jeff Lloyd, Locked On Browns podcast. Now you can step aside, take a quick time out, other side of the break. We'll continue talking quarterback. Also, we'll look forward to Day 2 of the joint practices going on right now. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns. Browns going through joint practices with the Eagles again today. So a lot of question, both locally, nationally. Should the Browns bring in Jimmy Garoppolo? Should they trade for him? Should they attempt to find a way to get Jimmy Garoppolo? And here's Shannon Sharp, FS1's Undisputed, on whether he thinks Browns should go after Jimmy Garoppolo.
I do, because I believe Jimmy Garoppolo is better than Jacoby Brissett. I believe that when the Browns signed Jacoby Brissett, they were anticipating somewhere between a 4 and 6 game suspension for Deshaun Watson. 4 and 6 games, Skip. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, he's 2 and 4. He's 3 and 3 at worst case scenario. We still have 11 games with Deshaun to right the ship, make the playoffs, possibly win the division. Now you got 11 games. If you look at Jacoby Brissett last year, he was 2 and 3 as a starter in Miami. 14 and 23 in his career. Jimmy G, 9 and 6 last year, 33 and 14 in his career. I believe Jimmy Garoppolo is a better quarterback than Jacoby Brissett. I believe he would account for at least, at bare minimum, 2 more wins than Jacoby Brissett. So the question is, Skip, what is the draft compensation that I'm going to have to give up to get him? And second of all, how much does Jimmy G want?
So, Jeff, would you trade for Jimmy Garoppolo? Would you entertain bringing him in as a free agent? All accounts are he's likely to be a cut, and that $25 million salary then becomes kind of moot.
Well, the first thing that's a little difficult there is if you remember with the Browns' courtship of Deshaun Watson, the reason they ended up paying $238 million was it didn't look like Deshaun Watson was going to choose Cleveland. If Jimmy Garoppolo gets cut, is he going to choose Cleveland? That's going to be something that they're going to have to, and it's a tough spot for Jimmy Garoppolo. If he comes here, he knows maybe, at best, he's maybe getting 11 games. If he's ready on time to even start by week 1, he's getting 11 games. But I do agree with the point Shannon Sharp made. If it was the first 6 games, very winnable 4 games, regardless of who plays quarterback for this Cleveland Browns team. But then business picks up, so to speak. Week 5, it's the Chargers. Week 6 is the Patriots. Then you got the Ravens. Then you got the Bengals, Dolphins, Bills, Buccaneers. I mean, that is a murderer's row of the schedule. Is Jimmy Garoppolo a better quarterback than Jacoby Brissett? I don't believe anybody's going to dispute that in any way whatsoever. We're talking about a guy who went to the NFC Championship game, went to a guy who almost won a Super Bowl a couple of years ago. Jimmy Garoppolo is the better quarterback. Jacoby Brissett, for all intents and purposes, he is doing everything that's asked of him. The initial looks look really good from Jacoby Brissett. But also how I'm looking at this is when the Browns side, and even if you did think it was 4 to 6 games, you viewed Jacoby Brissett as a number 2 quarterback. If it's 11 games, if you've got to play your backup quarterback for 11 games in any given season, what does that usually mean your record's going to be? Probably not very good. The other option is you bring in Jimmy Garoppolo, you have Jacoby Brissett. If Jimmy Garoppolo, he's still got to learn the offense. Jacoby Brissett, is ahead of him week 1. He plays well. That's all the more better for the Browns. But the problem is, what do you do after Jacoby Brissett? Are we ready to play Josh Dobbs, who has very, very limited time in the NFL? Josh Rosen, any time he's had in the NFL, hasn't been very successful. I don't think you can look at the players in this locker room, the Joe Batonios, the Myles Garrett, the Nick Chubbs, who do everything right, work their tails off, and say, yeah, we did everything we could to upgrade the quarterback. We think we really got an elite guy. But I'm sorry, guys. I know you're getting older. 2023, we're essentially have to pass on this season because of this move we made. I don't know if you can say that to those guys. And for me, I can't say it to those guys. I got to find a way to get Jimmy Garoppolo in here. Even though if I know it's only for 11 games, Jimmy comes in, he plays really well. He writes his own ticket for 2023. But I don't feel comfortable saying that this team can make the playoffs with the first 11 games, that it's going to be Jacoby Brissett or Josh Dobbs or Josh Rosen starting those first 11 games, especially when you get past those first 4 games and you get to that next 7, which is just an absolute brutal stretch.
Yeah, and to put it in terms of Shannon Sharp, if Jimmy Garoppolo means 2 more wins in those 11 games, that is significant. So I when you put it that way, I agree. Joint practices with the Eagles continue today. By all accounts, pretty even go of it. Jedrick Wills getting some work in against the Eagles' defensive line, and a guy that was impressive and has been impressive, rookie Jerome Ford, continues to impress in the joint practices, making some nice moves against some guys not used to seeing his moves. Jeff, how important do you think this is for Jedrick Wills? That's a guy, they need him right, especially with, Nick Harris going out, so now it might be Ethan Posick starting. They need the left tackle to be the guy they thought he was when they drafted him 10 overall.
I think this is also a thing where maybe things got a little misconstrued. Jed Wills last year obviously was injured, and everybody knows how injured he was. His play overall wasn't that bad. I think people would have came away a little bit more positive if he was able to move the way like he needed to move and he wasn't injured for the entire season. You've seen growth, you've seen potential. He knows how to use his arms. He's got long arms. His footwork gets cleaner and cleaner as he makes the transition from the right side to the left side. So for Jedrick Wills, I think as long as he stays healthy, I think people are going to see a big jump here for him in year 3. Jerome Ford is a really, really nice story. And, once we started, doing draft recap episodes on the podcast, and digging deeper into Jerome Ford, and you saw it with that run against the Jaguars last Friday night. He's got patience, and he kind of has patience a little bit similar to Nick Chubb. He got past the line of scrimmage, and all of a sudden, boom, found the hole to the left, shifted to the left, went down the sidelines, big 40-yard gain. I think the other thing that was impressive was at Cincinnati, they didn't really throw him the ball that much. 4 receptions, over 40 yards, caught a touchdown pass on a circus catch in the end zone. Jerome Ford, I'm not sure where the path is for playing time for him in 2022. It probably seemed more like an option for him to be the guy who would step up once the Browns and Kareem Hunt part ways headed to the 2022-23 season. But I think for Jerome Ford, this is an opportunity for him now. We'll see how he does the rest of the preseason. but he's looked really, really sharp. And, for the Browns, you're probably going to have to run the ball maybe 60% of the time, if not more. It's certainly, it's not going to hurt them to have another fresh back to go to at any point they need to. And I think the other one is Martin Emerson. Martin Emerson, it's been a really strong start to him. First thing you noticed right away was the length, long legs, long arms, big cornerback. And the talk of spring was we want to maybe try and get Greg Newsome in the slot a little bit. Well, that means somebody's got to play on the outside. Denzel Ward spoke earlier this week, and he said, look, if you need me to go to the slot, I'll go to the slot. Whatever the biggest threat is, if you need me to take care of it, I will. But that also means somebody's got to fill in on the outside. You got A.J. Green, a bigger cornerback who's played well. Greedy Williams, it's a tougher road with Greedy with the injury that's just never going to go away. And he's also in his contract year. And I think it blew a lot of people's minds when the Browns' first overall selection in this past draft was a corner. But he's big, he's long, he's looked the part to this point. And it allows flexibility for Joe Woods that if he wants to put Greg Newsome in the slot or he wants to put Denzel Ward in the slot, he can do that. And he's got a long corner he can put on the outside who's already shown he has the ability to make plays.
Jeff Lloyd, appreciate the time. Great insight. Thanks very much, Jeff.
No problem at all, guys. Everybody have a great weekend, and we'll see how everything works out 1 o'clock over at First Energy.
Sounds good. Jeff Lloyd, make sure you catch him. Locked on Browns podcast. Jeff Lloyd, the host. Really good stuff. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out on the side of the break. Jacob Roach from Dog Pound Daily, Sports4CLE. Be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery, Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns. Browns joint practices with the Eagles. They will have their second preseason game 1 o'clock against those Eagles, First Energy Stadium. Unless something dramatically changes, looks like Jacoby Brissett will be the Browns' starting quarterback. He's getting more and more comfortable with what Kevin Stefanski wants him to do.
I mean, I think every day we go out there, I've grown more and more comfortable. Obviously I didn't play in the game, but just seeing how the game was called and just, talking to the guys on the sideline and stuff like that, you kind of grow more confidence in what we're doing. So, just looking for that to continue to build. I got to go out there and prove that every day, right? I'm just excited for the opportunity. I don't take it lightly, obviously. And just going out to continue to be the man that I am, the player that I am, the teammate that I am. And I think all of that stuff kind of take care of itself for itself, and I don't have to, really speak on that, I think we have a plan, and we're going along with the plan. And obviously, I'm continuing to get more and more comfortable with the offense, and I haven't played in the game yet. So, I think when that time comes, it'll come. And I got to use, and which I do, I use these practices, these days as my game. I go out there with the mindset of it is a game. So I think I'm playing every day.
With that, let's welcome in Jacob Roach, Dog Pound Daily. Jacob, what do you expect from Jacoby Brissett? What can we expect to get with him if he is, in fact, the starting quarterback?
Jacoby is one of those players where, when you watch him over his career, you just kind of think, he's fine. I'm not going to call him good. I'm not going to call him bad. I think he's somewhere in the middle. I've kind of written about it a couple of times. And my thing is he's going to manage the game. He's not going to force any turnovers. That also means there's going to be a takeaway where there's not going to be as many opportunities for big plays because he's just not going to take risks. Kind of similar to what Tyrod Taylor is and what he was with the Browns a few years ago. And I look at it and I think as long as the offensive line is healthy and the running game is working, that Brissett can be good enough to win football games. He's not going to lose you football games, but he is definitely not going to be the reason you win them.
When you look at it, 11 games, are the Browns, and I know you've written an article about this, are the Browns a playoff team? If Jacoby Brissett is your starter for 11 games, what's realistic to think your record might be?
I went and did it game by game breakdown prediction last night, published it this morning, and I ended at 6-5. There's a few games where I think it could go the other way to where they end up like 5-6 or even 4-7, but I could also see them maybe going 7-5. Like, I think you got to look at these matchups in these 11 games, and I think that first month you have a realistic shot to go 3-1 or 4-0. I mean, I think they match up really well in that first month, and if you're able to somehow get to 4-0, you really just got to steal 2 more, from the remaining 7 at that point, and then you're at 6-5. And I think with 3 divisional games, if he can find a way to win one of those and set them up to where Watson has a shot to win 2, maybe in the back half, I think they can be a 10-win football team. I'm not going to go too much above 10. And maybe they can get to 11, but 10 seems like kind of the spot with, Watson's going to have to shake off some rust. And there's going to be games where they cannot win with defense and running the football. And ultimately, they're going to be around 9 or 10, I think, by the end of the year. And
so basically what you're saying, your margin for error with Jacoby Brissett as quarterback is less, because Watson gives you the big play. He gives you an explosiveness to the offense that you likely won't have. So you have some margin for error. With Jacoby Brissett, the margin for error for the rest for the defense and the running game, it shrinks. Fair? Yeah, I think absolutely it is. I mean, you got a situation where, for example, if Watson throws an interception, you can maybe come back from that. But if Brissett turns it over a couple of times, I'm not sure he can make the plays on the other end of the spectrum to kind of balance it out. So if he's got a rough game, I don't know if he can recover enough to win those games. So if he's not elevated by the players around him, I'm just not certain he can elevate the players around him if they're not elevating him. All right. What rookies, not named Cade York, do you think can carve out a role for themselves with the 2022 Browns? It seems like Jerome Ford's the answer here, right? I mean, we watched that game last week, man, and it was I liked Jerome Ford in that draft. I thought, here's Kareem Hunt's replacement. He does a lot of the things that Kareem Hunt does. I saw some Nick Chubb in his game last week, which was really nice to see as well. And then I saw that clip, Dave. I don't know if you got to see this clip from camp yesterday where he does 3 jump cuts in a row. I tore both of my knees watching that. and it's just, he's got enough, especially in this scheme. I think he's a schematic fit for what Kevin Stefanski wants to do. You just catch the ball. He runs the ball really well. He has such a good understanding on how to make the defense pay and take what they give him. And I just think that Ford, I know they're going to keep 4 running backs, but Ford might be the reason they end up actually moving one of those running backs, and then he takes over that spot, especially if, Hunt and Chubb have missed time, the last couple of years, and he can be that kind of third down back to spell those guys when they need it. Let me ask you this. I thought the defensive line played pretty well. The tackles, I thought there were a couple of guys that flashed. Some of the younger ends, Isaiah Thomas, I would look pretty good too. What did you think about the D-line play? And have your concerns been lessened there any?
I said earlier this week that when I looked at the defensive tackle performance overall, all of them, I thought it was okay, which is actually a compliment for that group from the way that we've kind of predicted this group would turn out. I thought that each one of them kind of did a certain role in that game. Like Tommy Togiai, he really didn't do a ton in the pass rush situations, but he had some really nice run fits on the early downs, which, okay, there's a role. There's a rotational player. Chuck that up, on the board. I thought there was a rep by Jordan Elliott. He ends up only getting a hit because Lawrence gets rid of the football. That was the best rep I've ever seen from Jordan Elliott. And I'm not exaggerating. I think that was the best pass rush snap he has taken in his now third year in the NFL. And I was like, okay, give me 5 or 6 reps like that in a game. There's a role for you. Taven Bryan didn't really do a ton, but he didn't get pushed around, right? That's what we were worried about. They got pushed around last year. Didn't get pushed around, kind of hold his ground. All right, that was nice. And then I thought Perrion Winfrey just showed you, he's got some technique issues to clean up, some refinement, but that motor, it is in 6th gear at all times, and he can make plays, on both ends. So I just thought overall, when I look at all 4 of those guys, that I needed to see something. We talked last week. You asked me, what are you looking for Friday? And I said, show me something in the defensive tackle room. And I thought as a whole, they showed that maybe they won't be the worst unit in the league.
Yeah, I agree with you that they showed certain things that you can use them to do. If they can do them consistently, then you've got something. All right, before I let you go, what areas most concern you about this roster as you move forward?
It's back to wide receiver depth. I mean, I'm more optimistic than I think a lot of people are. I'm not ready to panic on Anthony Schwartz like I think some might be, but you got to show more in the live games. I've seen you do it in practice. I really need to see you translate that to a preseason game, to a regular season game. I need to see that. And then outside of him, anybody else, right? Like, we haven't seen David Bell. I think when we see David Bell, I think it will probably ease my feeling. I'm very confident that he can be a nice third wide receiver for the team. But past, Schwartz and Bell, past the top 4 with DPJ and Cooper, I'm not sure right now. I think Michael Woods makes the team, but he's got that injury. I'd really like to see him on the field. But, you brought in some young guys. I'm very interested. The wide receiver depth right now, that's what Sunday, 1 o'clock, that's what I'm going to be dialed in for, is just give me something. Give me what the defensive tackles gave me. They showed me some quality role players, show me some quality role-playing wide receivers, and I'll feel pretty good about this year.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. You need to see more. They need more from the wide receivers, especially given the fact that Jacoby Brissett's going to likely be a starter for 11 games. Jacob Roach, appreciate it very much. Great stuff. Thanks for the time and the insight. Thanks, Jacob.
All right, man, I appreciate it.
All right, Jacob Roach, make sure you read him, Dog Pound Daily. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we will be joined by Lance Reisland from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Film breakdown of Amari Cooper straight ahead. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
Sports4CLE continues. We continue talking Browns. Amari Cooper, generally regarded as one of the top route runners in all the NFL. Let's welcome in Lance Reisland, former high school coach in the area, for a film breakdown. Lance, you've watched Amari Cooper throughout training camp from the sidelines. As a coach, what kind of stands out to you about him that makes him an elite wide receiver?
Well, the first thing that stands out is when you're up close with him is how big he is. He's a really big guy. He's all of 6'1", 200 pounds, maybe 210. He's long. He's, the intangibles as a coach is what I like first. He's first in all the drills. Every drill he does very, very hard. He's a very good leader to a young receiver group. And then, as you stated, his route running is very, very good. He attacks different hips, different sides of the defender. He works the blind spot, closes the gap when teams are in zone. And the thing I like the best is when he's working double moves, he uses his head and his eyes very well.
You mentioned when we say great route runner, what does that mean to a coach? When you tell me he's a great route runner, I'm like, oh, okay, he's a great route runner. As a coach, what does that mean?
I think there's a couple of things. One is he's going to be where the quarterback thinks he's going to be. That would be the first thing on whatever scheme they're in. So he's going to run the route to where the quarterback's going to need him, and then he's going to create separation for that quarterback. So he's going to either use raw speed or which Amari runs really well, or he's going to use savvy and craftiness to lean into people, use his head and his eyes. Like I said, attack the opposite hip of where he's going. And he does a really good job of closing the gap. So if a defender is off coverage, he closes that gap, which gives him he can go in or out. So he's just where he's supposed to be, and he creates great separation.
All right, we have some film clips that you had of Cooper out at camp that show a couple of those things. Let's take a look at this. This is kind of a change of pace. What does this do? And coaching points here to young wide receivers or fans that want to know, why is this important?
Well, the first thing he does is he has a really good release, and he does a really good job of, like I said, attacking the opposite hip. So he'll do a little shuffle release and kind of jab the opposite way if he's going. So here he's going to work a release. He's going to work inside, jab with that right foot, and then release outside. And then he does one of his many moves is he does a little change of pace here. So he's going to almost be slow, then really, really fast, and then slow in terms of trying to create that separation. So when he bursts, Newsome is forced to burst with him, and then he's able to put his foot in the ground and run that comeback.
And again, change of pace, probably more important than flatline speed as far as creating some separation. And I'm not minimizing flatline speed, but change of pace is a weapon for a wide receiver, correct?
Absolutely. The ability to especially when the quarterback and receiver get on the same page, you have to use different things to get open. And that change of pace is one of those tools they have. And he does a really good job, especially on those vertical routes and those comebacks and those curls, of selling that vertical. And sometimes when you sell vertical and you just sprint, those DBs can run with you. But when you change that pace, it causes that DB to have a little indecision. So, yeah, it's a great tool to have.
All right, working against man-to-man coverage here, a pretty good cover guy that we have seen, Greedy Williams. Here again is Amari Cooper against man-to-man coverage. What do you see there? What enables him to create some separation?
Well, the first thing you see again is that shuffle jab release. So he's going to shuffle jab release to the outside to get to the inside. So he's going to shuffle jab. He's going to stick that left foot in the ground. And then what he does a really good job of, instead of just going inside, he's going to push vertical with both his feet and his head. So after he gets right after the line of scrimmage right there, he gets vertical, and then he's going to be able to create that separation because Greedy's not sure if he's going vertical or if he's going inside there. So he does a really nice job with the release and then pushing back to vertical with both his feet and his eyes.
And when we mention crafty, those are kind of the things that add up to a wide receiver being crafty. Here's another route that you have. This one is a dig route. So here is Cooper again working on the dig route. What do you see there?
Well, again, as it gets redundant for that release, he's really, really hard to get your DBs have a tough time getting their hands on him at the line of scrimmage because his speed, because his ability to work his hands. But right here, what he does really well, at the end of the route, you can see, so he's going to run a dig route, but he kind of gives a little rocker step, a little head and shoulders right at the top. So he's going to drive vertical, he's going to come inside, and then he's going to give a little head and shoulders rocker fake and put that right foot in the ground. And when he does that right at the top of the route, he creates great separation.
Yeah, and that right there is critical. We haven't seen a Browns wide receiver create that kind of separation in a little while. All right, let's take a look. Cooper versatile too as well. He can play inside and outside. Why is this important? What do you see here?
Well, for what the Browns are doing, obviously with Brissett playing early and definitely for however long that may be, one of Jacoby's strengths is the ability to throw short and be on time and understand defenses. So what Amari can do is he can work in the slot and he can work outside. And that when he works in the slot like he is here, he's able to run those crossing routes, those quick out routes, those hitches, those slants, things like that. Things that are easy throws, easy catches. But it also allows him to touch the ball if he's not getting that vertical pass game.
Also, kind of, does it put the pressure on the defense to tackle because you're getting a guy that's pretty big out in space? Is that the goal of some of the short passing game, you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Gets the ball, gets the play. It's always playmakers over plays. So anytime you can get those guys to touch the ball in space, those guys who are elite in terms of catching and running with it, the quicker you can get them the ball and the better position they catch the ball and the more they can do with it. So yeah, I think his ability to play, multiple positions is going to allow, the offensive staff for the Browns to kind of put him where they need to put him to be able to have him get his touches.
And again, we got one more for you. Amari Cooper with a crossing route this time. And again, you had alluded to it. What do you see here?
Well, one thing he does is that this is probably a high-low read. I don't have the entire thing, but it looks like they're running kind of a high-low here with Njoku. So the quarterback's going to read high to low. And, in this route, he becomes very quarterback-friendly. And I had some people ask me what that means. That he just always seems to be where he's supposed to be. So as the quarterback's going through his progression here, he knows that Cooper is going to be where he should be on this crossing route. And with that big body and that big catch radius, he's very easy to hit, especially on these short crossing routes. So that crossing route and all those slot concepts give him the ability to get open and be very quarterback friendly.
And you mentioned, throwing, the shorter passing game with Brissett. That's likely to be something that the Browns kind of lean on in the early going, at least to get things rolling with, assuming that Watson is suspended at least 6 games, correct?
Yeah, I think when you watch Brissett's film, especially from his Miami days, he's very accurate inside 10 yards. Now, you lose a little bit of accuracy outside of 10 yards, but he also hasn't had the receiver of Amari Cooper's talent, in my opinion. He's with the run game, so the controlled passing game out of 3 and 4 receiver sets, even 5 receiver sets, yeah, he's very good. But when you have Amari Cooper, you could actually run some play action and take some shot plays with Cooper, take some 1-man or 2-man routes and just take a shot with Cooper off that run game.
And he's not world-class fast. He's fast enough. In your mind, is it kind of the savvy that makes him the receiver that he is, or is it the combination of the big body, savvy, and has enough speed?
Well, I think you said it. It's all three. But his ability to use angles and close the gap on defenders, and his ability to attack the opposite hip or opposite foot. Some coaches like to attack the foot, or I used to say attack the opposite hip. So his ability to know where he wants to be in regards to the defender. And the other thing that he does very well, he understands defenses and what defenses are trying to do to him. So he understands when to sit down against zone or keep running against man. So you have all those intangibles, like you said, but he also is very football smart. So he understands where he has to be. And that also will get you open because you know where the holes are going to be.
He's also not a guy that is really loud and boisterous, and that's a little different for a wide receiver. As a coach, what do you notice most about him? I think you kind of alluded to it, but as a coach, what do you like most about Amari Cooper if he's your number one?
Well, I like him. He is all business, and he seems to be having fun out there, but he's all business. So for him, it seems like a job that he enjoys. So he's not out there. It's not a lot of rah-rah. That's what I like about the Browns practice. They're very organized. There's a purpose for everything they do. And Amari Cooper kind of exemplifies that. So he's always first in line. He has great body language. It looks like he wants to be out there. He's a great teammate. He's helping all his guys. But again, he does it by example. He's not loud and boisterous. He just is a great leader by example.
Lance Reisland, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Lance.
Again, thanks for having me.
All right, Lance Reisland. Again, you can catch all of his film breakdowns on cleveland.com. We're going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, we're going to talk to Chuck Kyle, getting ready for his final season as the head coach of the St. Ignatius Wildcats, one of the legends in high school football coaching in Ohio. Straight ahead on Sports4CLE. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
Sports4CLE continues. We turn our attention to high school football. Last night, things got rolling. Tonight, the first Friday of the high school football season here throughout Northeast Ohio and in the state of Ohio. We're going to have a special feature each and every Friday. We are going to talk to some of the guys who have built Friday Night Lights throughout the state of Ohio. Let's welcome in head football coach of the St. Ignatius Wildcats, Chuck Kyle. He is one of the all-time winningest coaches in OHSAA history. 369 career wins, 11 state championships. Coach Kyle announced before this season ever began, actually last year, this will be his final year as head coach at St. Ignatius. Coach, as always, appreciate the time. What led you to that decision?
Well, I just people, administrators and so on, and people I trust and really have great admiration for, kind of came and said, you are 71 years old, and I think the school and the people would like to know, when are you going to retire? I think we need to know that. I've been here 50 years. There's no pay scale for 50 years or anything like that. And so there's some conversations after that. And I'm a guy that just, I'm just going to keep going and going. And you do need people once in a while just kind of pull you aside and go, hey, let's talk about what's going on. So I appreciate it. We had some good conversations, and I'm really happy and very overjoyed to see how we're making this transition.
You mentioned that. So one of your former players, Ryan Franzinger, has been named as the guy who will be the next head coach and associate head coach this year. I assume you had some input into that. I don't know that for a fact. How important was it that one of your former players who has been through the program, helped you build the program, if you will, is going to be continuing, by all accounts, one of the best programs anywhere, and it will be one of your guys continuing it?
Well, I just really cringed at the idea that, let's have this national search for someone to come in. And there are some great coaches out there, don't get me wrong. But you open up the door then for somebody that would look at this program and go, well, that's a stepping stone for my career. From there, I can maybe go to college and I can do this and I can do that. And that made me cringe. And I explained that to whoever would listen, right? That I think there's some unique ideas to our program and approach to our program, and kids that buy into it really strongly feel it affects their lives past high school and into their career. So it was just not a nice feeling to go, wait a minute, we have somebody in the program right now, in the building right now, that completely buys into what we're doing and completely could just make the transition beautifully. And then after last season, when we brought the team in to the chapel and sat down, and I told them this next year would be my last year, and the kids were a little shocked, but the nice thing about it, within a minute I could go, now fellas, let me introduce you to the next head football coach at St. Ignatius High School, Ryan Franzinger. And you could just see the kids just relax about it and put a smile on their face because they felt, yes, this is going to be just a nice flow. So that was my hope, and so far I'm very thrilled about it.
So you've coached NFL guys, Brian Hoyer, Anthony Gonzalez, Draymond Jones, Chris Hovan, some of the names that just come to mind off the top of my head. You've also coached state senators, judges, lawyers, doctors, successful business people. This kind of is getting at what you were talking about there. What did you want kids to take away from being part of the program that you built?
Well, I would just say that, first of all, the three pillars of our program is that a young boy can learn the importance of preparation, right? You prepare mentally and you prepare physically, and we prepare spiritually, okay? For our season, for our games. But this is just a football game. Let's put it in perspective. It's fun and it's enjoyable, and you learn so much about working with other people. But to me, the learning aspect of football is fantastic, and what I hope they do learn is that there'll be bigger challenges after they finish high school football, way bigger. But prepare mentally, physically, spiritually, if that moves you, and that's all you could do. And then go confidently in the pursuit of your dreams, right? Henry David Thoreau. And that to me is a very important thing we do. And then also, I'm going to go back to making a statement. The game of football is a tremendous educational situation. It really is. And I'm afraid football is, when you look at some of the things that are happening, and all those things, maybe we're losing the aspect that young people learn a lot by team sports, and especially football. The idea of putting your ego in the back seat and doing things that would help the team and help that whole overall idea, and not just look at personally what's for me. That goes a long, long way. It really does.
One of the things, and I've known you since you've been there, one of the things that's always been impressive is the way you connect with your players. And you've always, whenever we've asked, you've always allowed us into the locker room so we can hear you as you get ready to go out, and your guys go out and play a game. I want to play this for you, and I want people to hear you talking to your team, getting them ready for a game. It's really fascinating. This is from a few years ago, but here's Chuck Kyle pregame in the locker room.
Let's bring it up, okay? Hey, fellas, you're going to write a good chapter tonight of this season. This will be a good chapter. It'll be a very good one. Why? Because let's show everybody, ourselves, what we are. Got that? This is football, and we play it. We play it at an extremely high level. Let's go! You know, a football play, fellas, lasts around 5 seconds. Did you know that? 5 seconds. I think we can have the energy, and I think we have the technique to do that, right? All we need is a little more determination. Got that? St. Ignatius, just be determined. Those 5 seconds have to be yours. You own those 5 seconds. 5 seconds that you'll never have the rest of your life, then after football's over. Believe me, cherish it. Got it? Cherish this thing. We need that kind of determination to be the team we can become. Got it? Because it's there. It's there, fellas. But when you go out in the field, we got to get it. And that's what we're doing tonight. It's a good chapter. Got it? And we're going to build a chapter and build a chapter and write a great book. Got it? That's what this season's about, and that's what this game is about. Those 5 seconds have to be yours. Let's go.
Coach, how important is that connection? And you still have it. I've still seen it. And how do you do it?
Okay. Let's see. I'm trying to answer that one. Well, I just maybe it's been beneficial that I've been an English teacher, because you end up reading some fascinating verbiage in novels and plays and poems and so on, and maybe just ideas that other great writers have had. It just sparks when you sense the situation that the team is in, and the situation of that night and so on. I'm probably just making this what happens. I don't write something down. Okay, it's not that way. But I do think when you say connection with players, I've had young aspiring coaches ask, "Hey, coach, give me what about this? How do you get these kids to be tied into what you're doing?" And I firmly believe this, that young man looks you in the eye and should sense that the coach's goal right here is to help him get better. You watch him do something and you go, "Hey, come on." You know, when you're doing that, if you can get your feet a little bit in this position and aim here, it'll make it easier for you. And when a kid is kind of seeing that and he tries it and it's working for him, the response is he's becoming better, but that coach just helped me. It always, you know, when I hear a coach yell out, "Hey, make that block." Yeah, I think the kid knows that. I'm not sure if that's coaching. You understand? You know, you got to make that tackle. I think the kid knows that. Now help him with the technique. Well, hey, you missed that block here because of this. Hey, work on that now. Get that technique down. That's coaching to me. And when a kid is coming off going, "I know I made a mistake. Help me." Okay, so that's coaching to me, and that's important. The coach realizes at that vulnerable moment that kid needs that. Okay.
You know, the other thing you mentioned, you know, as an English, and it's English lit teacher, if I'm correct, you had mentioned a number of times there was some talk that you were going to be this college coach or that college coach, and it goes to the stepping stone thing that you mentioned. And your response, at least to me, was, "I'm just an English teacher who happens to coach football."
Honestly, Dave, I came out of college and that's exactly correct. I signed a contract to teach English, and I'm a guy who had I still have pretty good energy. And I've always had energy, and I go, "Hey, I'm just going to go out there and do some coaching. That'd be fun." And I felt if I didn't know something, I'd go research it and find a good way of teaching it. And I just think that the practice field, I also track coach. The track is a very good, again, classroom. It's a classroom where you can learn a lot, and so in a way, it's just I finished my English class and changed shirt, put a whistle on, and I'm out teaching a different subject, but it's an important subject. So that's just what I thought I was going to do, and to me. And I've said this a number of times, so people may have heard. I've never looked at this as a career. Careers are, you try to build your career and move up and do all this sort of thing. I honestly never entered my mind. What this has always been to me is can I use the term vocation? And a vocation means something more in here. Okay, that you're doing something that's beyond just moving your way up in the world. So that's the way I've always approached it, and I do not regret one second. I would do it all over again the same way.
Before I let you go, getting ready to start this season. You don't start easy, but one thing that people who follow St. Ignatius football knows, you're going to play the best teams around the state and sometimes out of the state. So you got Springfield this weekend, runners-up in the state. Tell me a little bit about some of the things that are important if the Wildcats are going to be successful this year.
Well, there is some youth blending in here. I mean, that's the challenge of high school football, even college football too. And you need that. There's some fine players that moved along and they're on college rosters, going on with their football career. But the challenge is, can we get with these limited days, the younger kids to be at that point where they're confident enough to go, yes, I can do this. I can take on the schemes and the complexity that's needed, and so that makes it interesting. That makes it a challenge. It makes it fun. I mean, to see how these, there's one thing about doing things in practice and doing things in a scrimmage, but when it's that first game, and like you said, well, we're playing Springfield, who's ranked number 2 in the state of Ohio. Some people would say, hey, why don't you try to build your schedule so those early games are easier, so you can. Well, we don't have that luxury, so we're going to go out and play, Springfield, and then Mentor, and on we go, right? That's the way it is. So to get to the point, it really. For this season is patience, right? Patience. The young people will make some mistakes, and we have to, instead of yelling and making a big deal, hey, let's make a correction there and try to build on learning from that mistake.
Chuck Kyle, as always, thanks so much for the time. Appreciate it very much. Look forward to catching up with you in a couple of weeks in person. We'll see you when you play Hoban. But as always, a pleasure. Thanks so much for your time. You've always been great to us, and we appreciate it.
Okay, it's been fun. Thanks, Dave.
All right, Chuck Kyle, head football coach of the St. Ignatius Wildcats. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We will see you back here Monday at 4 o'clock on Sports for CLE. Have a great weekend, everybody. See you Monday at 4.